Hey guys, Rick here, BigGunner81. Hope you're all doing well. Gonna do things a little differently today here. I'm just using the webcam to share this video with you guys instead of the regular camera. Um, Today's video is an idea that I got from Kevin the Tack Daddy. He actually said, hey, why don't you do a video about how easy it is to get your Illinois concealed carry license? And I said, hey, well, I've got mine, so I can kind of share some thoughts with you guys. Before we continue, though, I want to say this. Just a little disclaimer. Don't take my word as the gospel. You know, I'm not an expert by any means on this subject matter. Just sharing my opinions, thoughts, ideas, just for your consideration. So, if you feel that any piece of information that I'm sharing is inaccurate, or there might be a different idea that might work out better for some, let us know in the comments below, because this experience is a two-way learning experience. You know, hopefully I can help you guys learn something, and maybe I can learn something from you, and we can all kind of share the information and help better the whole situation for all of us. So, having said that, where do we start? It depends on you. It depends on what your level of experience is. If you have no experience whatsoever, well, you should probably hold off on getting your concealed carry license. That's just my thought, my opinion. You know, you want to have some experience before even getting to that point of concealed carry. If you don't have your FOID card, which is a firearms owner identification card, in Illinois you have to have one, get that first. Then get some training. You know, go out and take a class, like a beginner or intro class to shooting handguns, that kind of thing. Do that first. Once you have the FOID card and you have some basic experience and you're looking at going for your concealed carry, well, first things first, you got to pick out a good, reputable training company to go with for your training. In Illinois, at least at the time of making this video, the training is a 16-hour class. It's by law. It's required to have 16 hours of training. Now there are some exemptions. If you have if you have a concealed carry card from some of the other states like Florida, Utah, that at this time can count towards some of your training hours. So that's very cool. But it is a 16-hour class otherwise. Again, at the time of making this video. So the reason why I mention getting a reputable training company is not only because you want to have the best quality training possible, but there has been some instances, from my understanding, now I may be incorrect, that there has been cases where a instructor had his credentials revoked for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure, but I've heard rumors like they ended up letting the class out early, in the past, and that got caught, and so the instructor basically lost his credentials for being an instructor, and therefore all those students that paid money for those classes lost their credentials to get their concealed carry. And if they already applied for it, already had their card, it could be revoked, from my understanding anyway. So having a reputable training company is very important. So after you've selected a reputable training company that you want to use for your Illinois concealed carry license, what do you expect out of the class? Well, let me kind of explain a little bit about that. Not a whole lot. It's a 16-hour class, as required by law, at least at the time of making this video. There are some exemptions where if you have, like, say, your Florida or Utah concealed carry, you can get some of the time knocked off. I think each of them qualify, I think, for 4 hours, so it could be 8 hours total that you can get taken off of your time. That's just something that might change even, you never know. But anyhow, once you're taking the class, what you're going to get out of it is a lot of lecture time, talking about the law, the different situations you can be in, different things about holster types. You're going to cover some holster drawing stuff, obviously. Some classes do things a little bit differently on these, so I don't want to get too much into it, but after you go through all the lecturing and all that kind of stuff, there is an actual range portion, which requires kind of a shooting test. From my recollection, I think it was the furthest distance was 15 yards. I think there was 3 distances, and each distance, obviously 15 yards being the furthest. At each distance, I think it was 10 shots. You can miss the paper, 3 times on each spot, from each distance, I should say. So you can get like 70% of your shots, basically. But if you're doing that bad, I mean, that's kind of concerning because it's a pretty large target. Most people pass, it's not an issue. One student, and I witnessed this myself, came to class, an older guy, brought a revolver that he never shot before. Yes, he passed his test, but I don't recommend bringing a gun to class that you have not shot before. Doesn't make sense. You might as well practice, 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 at the range before you go for a class that requires, a shooting portion, especially because you're paying a lot of money for the training, and then you're going to be paying a lot of money for the actual licensing. So after you're done with the lecture and all that kind of stuff in the range portion of it, you're going to get your credentials, your certificate, if you pass the test or whatever, your class. And once you have the certificate and it's all signed off, you go ahead and you submit it with your application. Now, when you do your application, some training companies will help with the application process. Some, it's all on you. When I did it, it was pretty simple. There's a website you go to and you can upload all your digital copies of your information, like your photo that you gotta submit. You gotta take like a selfie basically, and crop it, whatever, and submit that. Which ironically, they don't really use the picture from what you submit, but they use your picture from your license, like your driver's license. More or less, they just use your picture you're submitting to verify it's you, I guess. I don't know. So the other thing I left off of this is fingerprints. At the time of doing my testing, or my training for it, they didn't require fingerprints. I don't think they do now even. But you could have fingerprints done, but the fingerprints were different in Illinois. They do what's called, I think, a live scan. Basically, they do an actual like electronic digital scan of your fingerprints and give you a file, versus the old ink stamp type fingerprints like the Florida and Utah I think still use, maybe. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, so after you have all your documentation together and you decide if you're going to get fingerprints or not, you go to the website, you submit your application online along with your payments and all that kind of stuff, and then the wait time begins, which waiting can always be the hardest part. So if you want to spend the extra money on the fingerprints, go for it. I didn't, but yeah, there's not a whole lot to it really. It's just, do a little research on the training company you want to use, because that's kind of a real important thing, and have a little bit of experience before going into this. Because why waste everybody's time and your money to take on something that you're not prepared for? That's, one way of looking at it, I guess. So that's about all I have to share with you guys as far as getting your Illinois concealed carry. Not a whole lot to say, even though it probably took about 8 minutes to do so or whatever. So until next time, guys, go out and have some fun shooting, and we'll talk to you next time.